Hi, my name is Debra R. Richardson of Debra R. Richardson LLC, and I work with you to help you clean up your vendor data, clean up your vendor processes so that you can pay the right vendor. This week's Vendor Master File tip of the week is vendor self-registration portals. 3 benefits. Now, for vendor teams, vendor self-registration portals can provide that automation necessary to eliminate manual processes such as collecting and updating vendor banking based on supporting documentation received via email. So if you currently don't have a vendor self-registration portal, here are 3 benefits that may help you convince leadership. Now, the first one is if you have your vendors directly submitting supporting documentation to the vendor team via email, then you can use the portal to get that vendor sensitive personal information out of email. And remember, if you're having them submit a W-9, that W-9 can contain a social security number, and also if you're wanting to pay by ACH, which now with remote work, most people are trying to flip their vendors to ACH, then it will get that vendor banking out of email. Now, the second one or second benefit is if you have your internal team members collecting that vendor supporting documentation, that W-9, that banking information, and then they will in turn submit it to the vendor team. You can use the portal to get that vendor sensitive personal information out of the hands of your internal employees. And let me just say, in my experience of working with teams and implementing a vendor portal, when they collect that vendor supporting documentation, that W-9, that banking form, remember they didn't really want to collect it in the first place, so they're going to keep it, especially if they had to collect it multiple times because something was wrong with it. They're going to keep that vendor supporting documentation in case they ever have to submit it again. So they're keeping it in most cases in an unsecured place in their email, on their C drive, their desktop. So the vendor self-registration portal, having that implemented will get that sensitive personal information out of the hands of the internal team members, so you don't have them saving it wherever they save it. Now, the third benefit is directly within the vendor team. It just standardizes the collection of that vendor information and really how you enter that into your accounting system or ERPs, especially if you have multiple accounting systems or ERPs. So when I implemented our portal, we had 5 accounting systems ERPs that were in scope, and so that really meant we had 5 different ways to collect that supporting vendor supporting documentation. Some of it was by email, some of it was by internal team members submitting a specific form just for that ERP, and so we had 3 of those different forms. So if we had one internal team member that wanted to work with a vendor, that internal team member had to submit a different form for each of those accounting systems or ERPs. And so it standardizes that collection. And then with a vendor portal too, if you choose, you can have that automatically feed in batch or API update the accounting system or ERPs. And in most cases, again, with multiple ERPs, each ERP has its own way of or own requirements for adding a vendor or updating an existing vendor. And with a portal that is integrated with your accounting system or ERPs, it will automatically update it from the information collected within the portal. And so that way you don't have to worry about having multiple processes to add or update an existing vendor. And it really makes it much easier when you have to onboard new vendor team members. Now, next week, I will follow this up with the vendor self-registration portal's 3 cons, so it'll be the exact opposite. And then if you are interested, I do have webinars on vendor self-registration portals, and I'll put a link to my webinar playlist in the description. So if you'd like more information on how to combat fraud, please go to my website. I'll have a link in the description. It's debrarrichardson.com, and there you will find free tools and resources to avoid fraud, regulatory fines, and just bad vendor data in general. So good luck, and don't forget to tune in next Tuesday for next week's Vendor Master File Tip of the Week.